You're listening to the Write Project podcast and radio program, a show about writing and modern Newfoundland author culture. This program is produced and recorded at CHMR FM 93.5 FM in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and is aired on other great stations in the province and elsewhere in the country. It can also be heard online at www.chmr.ca. I'm your host, Matthew LeDrew. Okay, Write Project podcast listeners, today we're going to be answering a popular topic amongst authors and readers, and that is, do you read reviews of your books? And if so, how do you deal with good ones or bad ones? First up, we have Chelsea B., author of London Calling, as well as short story author.
I do read them right now. If I was at the level of Colleen Hoover is one of my favorites. If I was at her level where I was getting thousands, that would be wholly consuming. So then I think I would just not read it altogether.
But then you could almost, depending on your mood, because you can filter on Amazon and on Goodreads, you can click, I just want to look at the 5-star reviews or something like that. If you could be interested, you could almost segment it and be like, I want to see the best of what people have to say, click the 5 stars, and I want to see the worst, click the 1 stars to see what the criticism is.
I think that could be beneficial, especially if they were all saying one thing. My favorite pastime when I'm really bored is going on to the Goodreads or the Amazon of my favorite books. I'm reading the 1-star reviews.
Yep.
And people are like, I didn't get this. And I'm like, well, did you read it? I don't respond to them, obviously, because I'm not that crazy. But it's just hilarious what other people are saying about stuff that I really enjoyed. Right now, I do read it because I'm still in a very formative time of my writing where I want to really hone my skills before I spend my whole life writing. So when I do get something that's a bad review or I didn't fit the worst ones are I didn't finish this because. Yeah. And I'm like, well, then
you've lost the ability to read to review the book.
Right. And lots of people still do. And you have the right to put down a book, but I don't think you then have the right to necessarily say I hated it because what if it all comes full circle at the end,
Exactly. What if it's a Fight Club where it all comes together at the end?
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, talking to other writer friends, especially those who have been in the industry for longer than I have, helps out a lot. I had a really good conversation with Amanda Labonte when I had a bad review, and I was like, what do you do? And I was like, because the review was a valid concern. It wasn't just, I don't read romance, 1 star. Yeah. That's different. But it was a very valid concern, and I was like, I want to prevent this in the future. I want to learn from this and be, hopefully better. And so she, gave some advice on what you can and can't control in your own writing.
The reviews I hate the most are the ones where they just describe the book.
Yeah.
There's a 1-star review of Cinders on Amazon that literally just says, there's a crime, and then these people investigate it, and then I think it's supernatural. I can't figure out if it's supernatural or a detective novel, and then it just ends. And I'm like, yes, that is the novel.
That's
Thank
how
you for that.
I wrote it, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a crime, and it is ambiguous whether it's a supernatural novel or just a normal detective novel. And you're correct, it does end then.
I really want someone who works at the Globe to read my book and just give it a 1-star review and be like, I work at the Globe, and then I came home and read this. It was awful. I'm so sick of work.
My favorite 1-star reviews are for John Oliver from Last Week Tonight.
I love him so much.
Yes. He wrote a book about Marlon Bundo, and all the 1-star reviews, if you look at them, are people trolling people who go looking for the 1-star reviews to find people who agree with them. So it's 1 star, I love this book, I just rated it 1 star so that people who want 1-star reviews will look at this and see that it's an awesome book. That's all it is, just a wall of positive 1-star reviews.
That's the person that I would respond to during my reading 1-star reviews of my favorite books. Yeah. And I would just give them a virtual high five.
Yeah. Thank you, Chelsea. Next up we have John Dobbin, author of The Starving, which comes out this May, 2019. Do you think you'll read reviews of your book when it comes out?
Yeah, I think I will, for sure. Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to like them or not, but I'll definitely read them.
Thank you, John. Next, we have Amanda Labonte, best-selling author of the Call of the Sea and Supernatural Causes series. Do you read reviews of your own work?
I try not to. And it's really tempting to read positive reviews and sometimes to go and check if there are new reviews, but I try not to. And it's not just because I don't want to read the bad ones. And maybe that's not the best idea, because like sometimes bad reviews exist for a reason, and you should kind of be aware that you could be doing something wrong. But I feel like my hope is that that my editor would catch that for me.
Yeah.
Especially if I was doing something consistently. But I think it's because I don't want to be really dragged in by positive or negative reviews, because I think sometimes when you get like even when you get the high from like the good review, that can kind of make me like less productive.
Yeah.
Like it can make me like too happy or too hyped to like really get my work done, because like I'm living in the moment of this other happy thing instead of like getting my work done. So I don't want to be a slave to the review.
Yeah. I mean, like, let's say someone gives a negative review about something that you know is going to continue into the next books, and
like
then
if
you've
someone
got that
says they
going
don't
in.
like cereals, and you know that this is part 2 of a 4-part serial.
Yeah. But even
that's
then,
already written.
if they like something from the first book, that isn't going to continue. Like, even if it's a positive review,
Well, as a crime writer, if they like a character that you're going to kill, that you know is
that's
dead.
all the characters. Have you read my stuff? That's all of them. No one is safe is the mantra for my writing. Like, the main character, spoilers, the main character of my books hasn't died yet. He will, and the series will continue. So, and I'm not going to advertise which book it is.
I don't like this, Matt. This makes me nervous.
Yeah.
What if I like that character?
Yeah.
That's no.
Yeah.
You can't say that.
Why?
Because maybe, you'll change your mind.
Yeah, I might.
I think you should change your mind.
I may change my mind.
I think, let's have something happy happen.
Yeah. Good things
Just
happening.
keep them alive and make them miserable.
Oh, that's true. You
better.
can always do that.
Yeah, bright side.
Yeah. Bright side.
Rainbows.
Thank you, Amanda. Next up, we have Diana Brown, author of Saltwater Joys. Diana Brown, how do you deal with good or bad reviews?
I have received some reviews of my book, and I love reading them.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, so far they've been positive.
Good.
So that's probably why I like reading the reviews.
Yeah.
But I think if there are negative reviews too, I think I would wholeheartedly love reading them too, because
I enjoy negative reviews. I hate negative comments.
absolutely, yeah, there's a difference.
There is. Like, just saying, I didn't like this book, it sucked, is not a review. Mm-hmm. That's not how that worked. If you read my stuff and hated it and gave me a book report on why this is the worst book of all time, I would love that. I would frame that and put it on next to my... I was like, look at this.
Yeah.
Diana Brown hates my book. Badge of honor.
But it just shows, because there's so many perspectives in the world. And
I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
I've got a business partner who always prevents me from doing this thing where I want to put the bad reviews on the back of the book. Like, the quote, like, this was the worst book of all time.
Yeah.
Just constantly.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Brad Dunn, author of After Dark Vapors. Do you think you'll read reviews of your books?
Yeah, for sure. Part of the reason why I'm so eager to get the book out is to see people's reactions. I feel like I've put like so much space between myself and the book at this point. Like, I've had so many people read it now that I have like a healthy distance from it now.
You're immune to
If someone's like, I hate this book, you're a terrible writer. If I get like the
I actually like
Twitter
those
troll
ones.
Treatment, like, it's not going to bother me.
I usually it's like, you're a horrible writer, and I'm like, I agree. Like, just
yeah, man. Just nothing can compare to the horrible insecurity I've gone through.
Yeah.
When I was an intern at the Walrus, I wrote an article for them about Man of Steel and about like kind of the history of Superman and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And it was like my first troll, because this guy came on. He like was like a hardcore Snyder fan. Like, I don't know where these people come from, but there it is. And he like attacked me and was like, "You're an idiot. This movie's brilliant." Like,
brilliant's a strong word.
You're a snob. Like,
yeah.
And I just remember feeling like, oh, it's my first troll.
Yeah.
Like,
in defense of, like, I remember watching it was a friend of mine who's also very, very into comic book movies, and we were watching a recording of a San Diego Comic-Con interview with Joss Whedon.
Right.
And, like, a fan got up with the microphone to ask a question, and they were saying, now that you've made the greatest comic book movie, maybe the greatest movie of all time. And I'm like, hold down. Avengers was an okay movie.
Was they talking about Justice League, or
No, they were talking about Avengers.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay.
It made a lot of money.
It was a decent movie that proved that you could have a team-up movie and didn't fail outright. The fact that it didn't fail was in itself a massive success.
Yeah.
It doesn't crack the top 100 greatest critical movies of all time.
No.
Like, I love it, and I've watched it 10 times.
It's not even my favorite first phase Avengers movie.
No, exactly. Exactly.
I don't think it's as good as the first Iron Man movie.
No, not many are.
I mean, Avengers is awesome. Like,
oh yeah,
put that movie on, man. It's like a great time.
Yeah,
but it's like you said, like it's.
But you can walk out and come back, and
I don't think Joss
anything.
Whedon caught that movie and thought, man, I just made a masterpiece.
Yeah,
like I think he was like, I accomplished my mission.
Like, anyone who's seen that is like, that's the greatest movie of all time. And I'm like, have you not seen Shawshank Redemption?
The way I look
Do you
at
not
these,
have, like, TBS where you're from?
I think, like, the Avengers, like, the actual ensemble Avengers movies should be, like, just fan service payoffs.
Yeah.
To what it builds up to.
Yeah.
Like
to me, it's like a season finale.
Infinity War was, like, the ultimate fan service to end all fan service.
Yep.
And I think that's why it was great.
Yep.
Like, it's not...
Well, it's all payoff.
Yeah,
you spend the first few movies, like every
all
movie,
ice cream, man. It's all dessert. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like the single movies have like setup, remind, payoffs within themselves, but they set up stuff that'll be paid off later, so that it can be all ice cream.
Because I have this debate with friends who say like, like the Avengers movie. You know, even though I do think you can go into it, I think they do a good job
making it self-contained.
Yeah, maybe like throwing a bone to the casual fans.
Sure.
But like I'm like their goal should be, let's reward the people who have watched all the movies.
Yeah.
Like that's who you should be rewarding with these movies, right?
I went into it annoyed, actually, because I'd gone in and kind of figured out, okay, all the stuff they set up in the other Phase 1 movies, how, like, you know, they set up that Jane Foster was looking for a way to get Thor back, like, through the Rainbow Bridge was broken at the end of Thor, and I was like, oh, she's going to open a portal, but Loki's going to come through. Like, it's going to be a portal to the wrong place. And, like, thinking about all these different ways and how the bones that they've thrown us throughout the movies are going to come together.
Yeah.
And it's like, how does Thor get there when the bridge is destroyed? It's like, he just does. Just
they kind of abandoned that problem.
They abandoned a lot of stuff in the Thor movies. My big problem with Thor 3 was that, like, that the cliffhanger of Thor 2 was resolved in 30 seconds.
Yeah, they kind of... the Thor 2 was bad. They had to kind of, like, shift gears with that one.
Yeah. Thank you, Brad. Next up, we have Bridget Canning, author of The Greatest Hits of Wanda Janes. Do you read reviews of your books? And as an addendum, how do you deal with good or bad ones?
I do read the reviews. I mean, it's wonderful, of course, to get a good review. It makes you feel validated. Bad reviews, I mean, you know, I follow Roxanne Gay on Twitter, and she said something with Goodreads the other day. She said, Goodreads is for readers, not for writers. So it is one of those websites, you know, you try to, once in a while I'll open it up and just kind of brace myself for the criticism and things like that. But I think, you know, it would be ridiculous to assume you would create something and everyone would enjoy it. So, you know, I usually read bad reviews and try to think, like, if people have a point or if it's just something that they are bringing to it. I think a lot of the bad reviews, like on Goodreads, someone expected something of the book and it wasn't what they expected, so they don't like that.
There is, you know, Amanda Labonte was on here, and she publishes, one of her books is a serial novel, which is a load of fun, but someone put a review of her book on that was, it's a serial novel and I hate serial novels, 1 star. And I'm kind of like, but it said that in the title.
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah, maybe you should read the small print.
Yeah.
Or just kind of, you know, I think often sometimes, or you'll go on and kind of, like, certain reviewers are looking for certain things, so... I think also just kind of being aware that everyone's just bringing their own expectations, and expectations are shaping their experience. So
makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Bridget. Next up, we have Peter Bro, a comic book author whose book The Mississippi Zombie comes out later this year. Do you read reviews of your books when they come out? And if so, how do you deal with good or bad ones?
Well, from what I've heard people say, never read the comments, But I do. And so far, I haven't seen anything that's been too negative. I haven't really seen a whole lot to begin with, right? I do, like, when I'll use an example. When John Michael Helmer, the publisher for Lucky Comics, he's when he's not publishing comics, he's a professor of literature at Arizona State University. And if I got that wrong, then, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Okay.
And so he's, when you send him unfinished script, you know what I mean, like something in the works, he looks at it, I think, like a professor, eh? So I've gotten scripts back, right, and said, no, you got to change this, you got to change that. At first, it's like, but now I look at it as an opportunity to learn.
Yep.
Because I don't know what I don't know, and I don't know, I like what I write, but then I'm kind of biased towards myself.
Yeah.
But when you get somebody else reading it, they're going to give me, that's why I send it to my brother, because I send it to him and he'll tell me the truth. He'll say, yeah, that sucks. Or, hey, how did that guy manage to do this in this panel, and in this panel, he's not doing that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like right now with the Mississippi Zombie, like Harrison Wood is sending me, like, the finished pages, almost finished, before they're finished, right? And he says to me, I see that in this page description, you want it to be in 4 panels. He said, but I can do it in 5 and make it look a lot better.
Yeah.
At one point, I would have said, don't touch my work. You do it the way I want it. And now I'm like, no, hey, if you think that that's a better way to do it, do it.
Yeah.
Because he's seeing something in the pacing of the story that I didn't notice.
Yeah.
In my rewrite, I might not have picked it up, or when I sent it to my brother and he read it, he might not have picked it up. But Harrison, as an artist who actually has to put it on paper, he picked it up. And that's a fantastic thing with working with really good artists, right? Because Monique's the same way. She picked up on a lot of stuff, and she'd say, in that page 14, panel this, you should really change this, or you should cut the dialogue back a little, because, I think this would work better. And I'm like, Monique, thank you so much. I'm honored to be working with you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Peter. Next up, we have Ellen Curtis, author of the Infinity series and the best-selling From the Rock series. Do you read reviews of your books? And if so, how do you handle good or bad ones?
I do read reviews of my books, but kind of need to divorce yourself from them to live a productive life. Because the good ones, if you're going to buy into the good ones, will put you on cloud 9.
Yeah.
But if you're opening yourself up to that, and you're putting your stock into that, then you're also putting your stock into the ones that are negative. And they'll bring you right back down. So I like to see when people are reading and engaging with the text, but I try not to take it to heart.
Sometimes they can be really motivating, and sometimes they can be really frustrating. It's a mixed bag.
Thank you, Ellen. Next up, we have Paul Carberry, best-selling author of the Zombies on the Rock series. Paul, how do you deal with good or bad reviews?
I do read them, just out of curiosity. I don't think there's nothing to deal with.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to take criticism and okay, if this person didn't like this, and I'll go back and say okay, maybe I can work on this. And if people really like one thing, I'll make sure that when I do change my style of writing, I still keep those elements. If people say, a lot of people say, I like your dialogue.
Yeah.
So I've tried to keep my dialogue in the same
consistent way,
yeah.
Nice. Thank you, Paul. Next up, we have Aaron Vance, editor on the From the Rock series from Engine Books.
I don't read the reviews, but people come up to me and talk to me about it. Now, normally those are the good ones, because they're actually coming up and talking to me. But since I've never really written a book, like the anthologies, even the ones that I have stories in, I'm more invested in them as an editor than as that short story. So
there's a detachment.
Yeah, there is. So I'm really lucky that way. They don't bug me. Even when I see a bad review, I'm kind of like, is it a bad review because of the story, which I had no say in it, or is it a bad review because I missed some editing things? And if that's the case, I can improve on that one.
Thank you, Aaron. Next up, we have Tanith Frost, author of the Immortal Soulless series. Tanith, do you read book reviews of your books? If so, how do you deal with the good ones or the bad ones?
I tend to not read them. I definitely appreciate when readers leave reviews, but I tend to think that they are more for the benefit of other readers who are considering reading a book. Just because by the time I publish a book, it has been through a lot of revisions. It's been to an editor. It's had beta readers. It's the book that I want it to be at that point. So I'm not reading reviews to figure out what I could have done differently. And early on in my career, I did have a habit of looking to good reviews as sort of an ego boost. But I realized that if you're going to use the good reviews that way, then you kind of have to use the bad reviews that way as well. So you get a balanced perspective. And overall, I realized that I'm just better off not letting any negative reviews drag me down. So yeah, I'm very appreciative of readers who leave them, and I might skim them once in a while, but it's not something that I get too deep into, and it's definitely not something that I base my sense of self-worth as an author on.
No, that's smart. No, that sounds really smart, actually. Thank you, Tanith. Next up, we have Ali House, author of the Segment Delta Archive series, as well as Too Many Short Stories to Count. Do you read your book reviews, Ali House? And if so, how do you deal with good ones or bad ones?
I brace myself heavily before I read a book review. And, remind myself not every book is for every person. There are people who aren't going to like it. There are people who are going to love it. So, you just hope it's a good one. Good reviews, you always try to pick out what people enjoyed about it, and you try to kind of remember. And it's a good thing to remember because it makes you realize why you did this and why you wrote it. And it's kind of like validation, so it's lovely. And then with bad ones, you just kind of try to pick out why a person didn't like it, if they're coherent enough in their review to actually kind of provide feedback, and then you just kind of look at it and you think, well, oh, maybe that is something I could change, or that's just the way the story is, so not your cup of tea. There was one review that compared my book to Divergent, and I was like, no, it is way more Avatar: The Last Airbender. Even though I started writing this book way before those two things even existed,
yep.
But I was just like, get it right, compare it to Avatar first.
Yep.
But, Divergent, the parallel does hold, so...
Yep. Thank you, Ali. Next up, we have John Hass, author of The Reluctant Barbarian. Do you read book reviews?
I do read them. Generally, what I've been reading so far have been the blurbs on Amazon that people will put on there. And so far, they've been fairly positive responses to the stories, which is good. But I'm totally prepared for negative comments. I'm part of a critiquing group, and we are very blunt in our critiques of the stories, and we'll be like, yeah, I did not like your main character. The ending does not make sense to me.
I find you need that.
Oh yeah. And I have several friends who read my stuff, and I'll always tell them, if you hate it, tell me. I don't mind. I'd rather hear you tell me you hate it than send it to a publisher who sends it back and tells me they hate it.
100%. Thank you, John. Next up, we have Kit Sora, the artist behind Kit Sora, the Autobiography. Do you read reviews of your book? And if so, how do you handle good or bad ones?
No, I do not.
You don't?
I absolutely do not. First of all, I don't think I'd ever go looking for them. But it's almost like reading the comments on your photos. It's like, somebody can say 800,000 good things about your photos, and that'll make you all warm and fuzzy. But you'll get one negative comment, and that'll stick with you like hot sauce. It just doesn't go away. I don't know why I said hot sauce.
No, that makes sense.
It sticks with me. But yeah, and I try not to take everything personally, but I'm super sensitive, and I latch onto things, and I'm an overthinker. So, I overthink everything, and I'm like, oh, well, this person didn't like this. Maybe it's because I did this, and I should have done this.
See, I'm similar, but I weirdly see it as a positive. I have this bad tendency to not believe all positive criticism and completely believe all negative criticism. Oh. But anytime I get negative criticism, I go, okay, let's do this better. But whenever someone's like, oh, you did this right, I'm like, that's nice, liar.
Yeah, see, I guess I feed off of the positivity and stuff. I'm really bad at negative anything. I try to be cheerful, and I'm spreading the love, and I'm a happy-ish, go lucky kind of person. So anything negative, I think about it, and I think about it long and hard, and it can take over my day.
Oh yeah, no, that's not good.
It doesn't sit well. So while the people who are leaving negative reviews probably don't set out to hurt me in the end. It's probably literally just a, honest opinion. Here's what I think. That's fine.
Well, some people are just toxic too.
Well, and that's true. And, I've come across a little bit of that in the early stages of what I was doing. So I don't know if that set me up for the way that I am now. It probably had a hand to play. But I just don't read the reviews. I put out what I do. I'm happy with what I do, and people can like it or lump it.
Cool.
I don't need to know if they prefer it or not.
That's fair. Thank you, Kit. Last, we have Candice Ostenson, author of Witches in Time and the Dark Tides series. Candice, do you read good or bad reviews of your work?
I'd like to say that I don't, but I do.
Yeah.
Because I'm a masochist. No, I read them, and for the most part, like, I would say 98% of my reviews are good.
That's a good
but
ratio.
That's like the one or two bad reviews, like, kill you. They
Yeah.
really do. You think about them all the time, you're like, well, now I just gotta rewrite the whole freaking book. You know?
Yeah.
But I restrained myself, and I forced myself to look at the other reviews, the good ones, and it's like, look at all these people that like my book. It's fine the way it is. You're not going to appeal to everybody. Just like I don't like every book. I don't like every movie, but other people do. Like, it's normal. Comes with the territory.
I find, I don't know about you, and I wrote a blog post that kind of alluded to this recently, but I find I don't know if this happens to you, but we'll see. I find my worst reviews come from people that want to be writers and don't have a book out yet.
I don't know if I've gotten any... Well, I've never really thought about it that way, but I mean, you can probably read any review with that perspective and think, well, is this a writer? Is this somebody with different expectations or different style? Yeah.
I feel like it's someone who, and some of this is not from, like, reading a review online that I don't know who the person is. Some of this is, like, in-person reviews. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
okay.
yeah, so I know a bit more about the person. You know what I mean? But often it's a case of, like, they've read your book and they're picking it apart because they are writers, but they haven't gotten any real feedback yet. So they've only gotten feedback from their friends and family who are blindly encouraging. So they think they're perfect. But then when they put their stuff out there, I can't count the number of times that I've had people who don't have a book out yet who write a scathing review or like on Goodreads or somewhere that's not Amazon, like a little bit more private, or that message me privately. And then if they do put something out, that come back afterwards that are like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, you had good points. And they're like, yeah, but I didn't understand. Like,
Yeah. That's really good of them to come back to you because...
It's happened so many times. I used to keep all the bad emails, and bless people for sometimes doing it in private emails. But 10 years later, I was at a show, like a publisher's panel, and someone came up to me and was like, I wrote you a really scathing email 10 years ago where I said this. I was like, I remember, I almost got it framed. It was so negative, but so well phrased. Like, her takedown of me was pitch perfect, and she was right on point with everything. And she was like, yeah, no, but I get it now.
I haven't had that happen to me, but I would very much like some of my bad reviewers to come up and apologize. But I get really weird reviews. Like, I just got one recently on the third book in my Dark Tide series, where the person literally said, it's like the author expects us to have read the first two books.
Yeah.
That's what the review was. I was like...
Oh no, there's a review of one of our serial novels that it's a 1-star review, and it's, I really love this novel and everything about it, but it's a serial and I hate serials, so I've 1-starred it. And I'm like, you can't... It's marketed as a serial. It says on the front...
It's like watching the sequel to a movie and being like, it's like they expect me to have seen the first one. What?
Or, like watching an episode of a TV show and then saying, I really love this, but it's very episodic. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's silly.
It's so silly. But on what you were talking about, where you'd like people to come up and and talk to you years after if they've changed their mind, the only way I can make that happen, I can do it if you want, I can give bad reviews of all your books and then, like, set an alarm for 10 years ago and, like, apologize to you. If you want that feeling, I mean.
No, I'm good.
Okay, you're good. Okay. Horrible. That's going to be the takeaway from this episode. Candice Ostenson wants bad reviews, but she wants you to come back 10 years from now.
No, I'll pass.
Yeah, hard pass. Hard pass. All right, well, thanks for coming on again. For all of you, we'll be here again next week at 4:30 Newfoundland time or online at chmr.ca. Please tune in and we'll talk more about writing culture in Newfoundland.